Oh, all right. We live. We
That's the
live.
stream.
How hot is it
What's up,
around in
dunce?
your neck of the woods today? Because it's hot as fuck here today. It's like
Well,
soup.
let me put it this way. I was at a goth fetish party last night,
Mm.
as we were talking about. Um, when we were dancing inside, you'd be like, "Oh, damn, I need to go outside and get some air. It's too hot in here." And you walk outside and it's warmer, and
Mm.
you're like, "What the fuck?" And it's muggier because it
Mm.
was like thunderstorm weather.
Yeah.
Like there was a really cool slash creepy fog in the air last night, and you'd like look down the street and it'd start getting hazy. You know what I mean? I'm like, that's what's up. But it was like not a cold fog. It was like that weird summer electric muggy fog where
Mm-hmm.
it's like just the conditions are brewing to make a thunderstorm. You know what
Mm.
I mean? Oh, but yeah, I was in a Alice in Wonderland outfit dancing at the goth party last night with all of the other cute goths. There was too many to count.
Heck.
I'm sure I could put it. I'm sure you could put a number. There was less than 200, but too
Yeah.
many to
So
count.
like, where was it at? Like a club or like someone's house? Like, what was this party?
Oh come on, this is Toronto. Nobody does house parties. This is
Oh,
Vancouver.
yeah.
In Toronto has a surplus of venues, right? So there's a lot of places that you can do shit at.
Mm.
So like out here, I don't know the name of the club we were at last night, but it's very clearly a club space,
Mm.
and it's for like kink party shit because you
Mm.
got like fucking spanking benches and shit.
Mm.
Um, but it's not one of the big ones like M4, which is Menage a Quatre.
Mm.
um, yeah, I know, right? And then there's Oasis, but Oasis is kind of exploitative because they charge cis men $100 to get in. It's like, my brother in Christ, you're charging women 15 or $10, and a cis man is almost 10 times as much. Check yourself before you wreck yourself.
It's like when
Actually,
places have things like that, it's like part of me is like, I get it, right? I understand their logic, but at the same time, I'm like, it's still not fair. Like I understand what you're doing, but it still
look,
doesn't make it fair.
look, I'm gonna be real with you. I'm gonna be real with you. If you're pricing your sex club so that women like me can go, oh yeah, it's $15. Hey, I can just go and pay it and maybe not even show up. The cover is so low, I don't even need to care,
Right.
you know. And then dudes are like, do I go? Can I go? If I want to have a hook, like, and here's the problem too. I think sex clubs actually have a really good place in queer culture because, with how cities have gone and how shared living works in a lot of spaces, I think that people want to hook up very often, but you
Mm.
don't want to go buy a fucking hotel for the night. Plus,
Right.
it's
Yeah.
kind of sus meeting a stranger in a hotel for a hookup. You
Yes.
go to a sex club, I'm telling you, I have never felt more safe than going to a sex club for a random hookup,
I've
okay?
never been to
There's
one.
people there. There's security cameras there. If I say no and the fucker doesn't want to listen and he doesn't stop, the person who monitors is going to come peel him off me by his neck and throw him out of the club forever,
Mm.
right?
Oh,
And he'll
so it's
get
just
fucking
one time you
charged by the
fuck
cops
up,
too.
like you fuck up once and that's it.
It depends on the severity
Mm.
of the fuck up. If you're like watching some people and they don't want you to watch something, they ask you to please leave and you leave, it's fine. No harm, no foul, right?
Yeah.
If you are being a creep and people ask you to stop and you don't stop, they may not report it. But if
Mm.
you're really pissing people off and they have to throw you out, you're not going to get that back.
Yeah.
So
Not a good look.
they weed out the creeps. Yeah. Also, Oasis, the sex club out here, is part of queer history. Apparently, it was one of the bathhouse raided back in like the Stonewall days when like they were still raiding queer spaces with the cops and shit. So here, I didn't know that I was partaking in like a long, proud queer tradition of getting fucked at a bathhouse.
The sacred rites of the
The sacred tradition has been continued. Um,
It's funny, we
but yeah,
were
no,
we were
it's pretty.
talking about like sex clubs like that the other day actually. Funny that you up at a party because we were talking about that because apparently
I
Philly has some. I just am not aware of them and I never
let's
been.
Jay, let's let's be really real. I'm going to them constantly. I'm just not telling y'all about them all the time.
Yeah, that's completely fine. How often do you go? Like, how much of it is it like a part of your life?
Let me think. It depends on a lot of stuff. It depends on money,
Like, yeah, and
scheduling,
busy
my
and
friends, and my energy and my outfits,
mm.
right? And
It's all
my
about the
work
outfit. That's what it
schedules.
all boils down to. Because if the outfit isn't working, we're not going.
I was PVC Alice in Wonderland
Oh,
yesterday. I
pretty
got a lot of compliments. I also got a
gorgeous.
weird comment from somebody. A friend of a friend saw me and she's like, "Oh my god, that's her. She's one of the big girls in the goth scene out here." And then my friend tells me this afterwards, and I'm like, "What?"
What?
He's like, "Yeah." And I'm like, "Me, like me." And then he's like, "Yeah, you." And I'm like, "How?" He's like, "What do you mean?" I'm like, "I go to like a couple events." And I'm not even like doing shit there. I'm not like DJing on stage.
Right,
I'm
yeah.
not performing. I'm not like
You're a
out
professional
there getting
partier.
fucked in the dungeon. Now let's be clear. Let's be clear. I would get fucked in the dungeon and I would dance on the stage, but I have to know people. I'm not like that girl who just like throws myself into a situation. It's like, I'm gonna be the drunk bitch on stage now. No. Sit down,
No? Not
right? If you don't invite me up, I'm like kind of like a vampire, to be honest.
Yeah,
It's
you have
the
to be
autism.
invited.
You
Yeah.
need I need to be invited or I need to have somebody explicitly tell me something. I may seem like I'm a frigid bitch. If somebody who's hot asks me, "Oh my god, you're so cute. Can I kiss you?" The answer 90% of the time is going to be yeah, because it's just a kiss. It's not like
Right, yeah.
anything but a kiss, right?
Right.
Um but like I'm not frigid in the slightest. I just need people to be able to be clear with what they want in a situation, and it's kind of like a bar so low that people could fucking trip over it, right?
Mm.
But then you just get that one person who's not all up in their feelings about being self-conscious or like in their head about whatever, and they're like, "Yo, you want to dance?" I'm like, "Fuck yeah!" And I'm like way more friendly than people think on the surface, apparently.
I'm
So
very similar,
I don't know.
like pre-transition, everyone was always like, "You resting bitch face," and I was like, whatever. And then I
Mm,
always get those comments like, "You should smile more," and all that kind of shit. And
ah,
I'm just a serious person. Like I just have a very serious sort of exterior, but that doesn't mean, like you said, like I'm not a frigid bitch, Like just say, like if you want to talk to me, you want to do whatever, like just tell me what it is that you want, and I would be
yeah, I
glad to
was
have a
gonna say,
conversation
like,
about it.
out of all the people that I know, like if I had to come to you with something that might not be the best news, you're like one of the last people I expect to blow up about it. Like you will get pissed if it's reasonable, but your anger is not like
No.
I need to direct it at somebody and make them feel shitty for it. You got like
Mm-mm.
the kind of anger where I'm like, that's a reasonable response. So like, I don't know, you've never like kind of made me be like, oh no, Jay's mad. Whereas some people are like, they get mad and you're like, I need to not be near you, you know?
So let me chime in as Jay's wife because Jay's anger can be scary sometimes.
It's all
But
external, that like it's never
it's
directed at a
external.
person. It's just directed at the
His
world at large.
always.
Yeah.
And it you Jay has received many a Reiki session and being knowing him for 14 years and being married, being together for 5 now. Um the term volcano is very appropriate for my husband. He is the most
Yeah, but
grounded fire sign that I've ever met.
Mm.
And it is very hard to turn him to anger. The amount of times I've seen my husband angry, I can count on one
And
hand,
like
and that is the God's honest truth.
and the thing is with me, like how like before volcanoes erupt, like they generally give off warning signs. At least like now
signs.
we're able to like detect, like when they're about to go off. I'm kind of like that. So especially
I
like the more
think,
younger you
okay,
Exactly
get.
that's
like
actually probably why I don't get tripped up by your anger.
Mm,
Two things. One, you're not directing it at an individual, so it doesn't make anybody feel self-conscious.
mm-mm,
Two, you give signs that you're mad ahead of time so
mm.
people know that you're frustrated, and it's not like, so with me, my anger startles the shit out of people because I bottle it up
Yeah.
and people think I'm totally happy, and then I'm actually furious. And then when I finally let it out, they're like not expecting it.
They're
And they're
like,
like, wow,
"Whoa."
you're really mad. And I'm like, yeah, I'm fucking mad. So like it startles people just by the severity of it coming out of nowhere. Whereas, like, if it kind of bubbles up a little bit, you're kind of okay because they're like, "Oh yeah, he's pissed. Give him some space." And then when you're like pissed about it, they're like, "Yeah, well, I fucking expected it, right?" But if you go from nothing to the blow up reaction, like, people fucking walk away. I'm just
Yeah.
saying.
Yeah. It's all about controlling your reactions to things. Like, it's okay to be triggered by
I'm
stuff. It's okay to be pissed off, and sometimes you blow up. Like, that's just the fact of it. Sometimes you blow up and things are too much, but you have to, like, walk yourself back down, talk yourself. You got to come down at some point. You can't be blown up all the time.
I feel like everybody has an individual journey with anger who's had issues with it. Like, for me,
Yes.
I how do I put this? My anger doesn't do me any good.
Mm-mm.
Anytime I reach for it, there's a better tool I have. I'm just not selecting it. There are very, 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 very few instances in which I truly need to wield anger to get something done. And those instances are egregious. Like, I have been wronged horribly, or
Mm.
somebody I know has been wronged horribly, and I need to be able to, like, really do a 180 compared to what's happening. So, like, if somebody I know I care about is being assaulted, I am going to eviscerate that person. It's on the fucking
Mm.
spot, right? But, like, if I'm mad at somebody in a conflict situation and I let myself lean into my anger, the situation will almost always go in a way that is detrimental to myself and to my relations and community involvement. So
Yeah.
I've had to learn that while I have a very powerful anger that can, like, save fucking lives, and I don't mean that exaggeratingly, um, it can also burn fucking bridges and burn foundations to rubble if I'm not careful. So I only reach into that pocket when there is no turning back. And if I have to reach into the rage pocket, God fucking help everybody, including myself.
Christella in the chat just said, for me it depends on the situation if I blow up from bottling it all up, or if there's warning signs leading to an explosion. Yeah, and that it really depends on the situation. Like, yeah, because there are sometimes things just happen, and like you're just like, what? You can go from 0 to 100 pretty quickly.
Mhm.
It's just all about like managing how you, and like it's like I said, like sometimes you just blow up, but at the same time, it's like you have to also like apologize to anyone who needs, like, and genuinely do it too, because like when I blow up in anger, I really don't feel like it feels good in the moment, right? Because you're like, it's that release. It's just like, and it almost feels like it feels powerful in a way, but it takes so much of my energy. Like, it takes so much of my energy, so like I can't sustain it. I think that's the thing with me, is like when it comes to anger, it's like it happens, but then I can't like maintain it for long. I don't have that like slow burning, like smoldering
No,
kind of,
it's you burn bright
and
and
then
burn
I'm like,
quickly.
I'm too tired to be angry.
I'm gonna be a fire nerd over here. Your fire is like the prairie. It's a grass fire. It's hot. It's quick. It scorches the earth behind it. It can cause a lot of damage, but it doesn't linger.
Mm-hmm.
My fire,
Exactly.
my fire is like embers,
Mm.
like a fire from a forest that happened a long time ago but never went out, and it crept downwards into a coal deposit, and it's just burning underground where nobody can see it, and it's there just
So you are
doing its
Centralia,
fucking shit. I say
Pennsylvania.
that,
I was just gonna say, so
yeah,
you're
pretty much.
Centralia,
Centralia.
Pennsylvania.
No, I say
Otherwise
that,
known as
but I have a really good handle on anger and aggression in my life. I have to, because I grew up in an abusive environment. And as somebody who is raised masculine, a lot of us don't necessarily gain agency in life until we're able to use violence to create a boundary. It's a very sad truth what happens to a lot of assigned male people, or people who have to navigate society under that lens of society, that people expect you to use and impart violence as a tool for navigating the world. And I think it's so fucked up, right?
It is
People treat you
true.
like shit and they'll push you
patriarchy.
around, and you don't gain a sense of self until you lash out in violence against somebody who's taking a boundary from you. And it's like kind of a problem in our society, and it's addictive to a lot of people because we then naturally correlate ourself and our boundaries and creating that space that we need with anger, because it's the only space in which we're allowed to truly exert ourselves to begin with, right? So it becomes fucking
Right.
addicting, right?
Oh yeah.
Like when I studied martial arts, nobody ever actually laid hands on me afterwards without fucking repercussions. And anybody who hit me fucking regretted it for the rest of, well, maybe not the rest of their life, but the rest of the fucking week, that's
For a
for
good
sure.
while.
Yeah.
Fucking long enough, and they never. Another thing too is anybody who's thrown hands at me has never thrown hands at me again, and so that's kind of where I stand on that. So it's shitty, it's unfortunate, but we do often have to use violence to delineate ourselves in society.
How
Yep.
I'm curious, like I think about that a lot too, because like I had like the opposite sort of upbringing, so I was like raised to be very like quiet, and like reaching for anger was not the way to go. If you reach for anger as a as someone being socialized female, when you reach for anger, you're a bitch, you're being bitchy, like that's where it comes across as. So like I've noticed, like in my male presenting years, I've noticed that I usually like if I'm in a sort of confrontation sort of situation with men, like I noticed like at my job, like some of like when some of the men reach out to me like about questions or whatever, and if it's like a busy time, like when I respond in a very like direct, sort of gruff, maybe I'm slightly annoyed because you're fucking calling me and I'm trying to get my work done kind of thing, I'm just like, all right, yeah, I'll take care of it. And then like, but the thing is like the men are just like, okay, yeah, like take care of it. But then like it almost feels like I gain their respect because I'm just so like rough and gruff and just like, okay, this is what I'm
Like
doing.
them.
Yeah, but like
For
I
real.
don't like it.
No.
And then like
it's a sad truth.
yeah, and then like when like I'll get like a call from like one of my like female coworkers or whatever, and I'm like, oh hey, how are you? What do you need? What can I help you with? And I change my, I guess I just change kind of like the mask
You
that I'm
code
wearing.
switch.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
code switch.
And you know what's so
There it
funny? And the other
is.
thing that I do too when I have to call, like call other companies or clients or whatever, pitch my voice up. And because I make it sound softer, because like that's that's what people want to hear, like a nice soft speaking voice on the phone. But I don't drop my tone. I pitch my tone up, and on the it drives me nuts. So I'm like calling a client. I'm like, oh hey, this is Jason from company name, and then they're like, oh hi
this
ma'am.
is Jason from this company name.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
Jason.
Yeah. Yeah. And so it's something that I
Thank you for
work
calling
on.
Amtrak this fine afternoon.
Yeah, and like you pitch up, and then like I try not to do that. So then I'll try to pitch down, but then I'm like, then it just sounds like I'm mad.
Exactly.
These people.
Why are you angry? I'm not angry. I'm from Philly.
That should be a t-shirt. Not angry, I'm from Philly.
I was gonna say something, but a car alarm just started going off outside and deleted my thoughts.
I briefly picked that up.
But what was I gonna say? Yeah, so like being queer, oh god, here's another thing about being trans I was thinking about last night. I have troubles at clubs. You know why? It's not because I'm uncomfortable with myself. How do I put this? As a trans girl, a lot of us don't grow up feeling pretty, right?
Yeah.
You don't get treated like a pretty girl. You don't get doors open for you. And then we transition and we're like, oh, I'm gonna not feel good about how I look forever. And then all of a sudden, everyone's like, you're really pretty. And you're like, huh? And then like you look in the mirror and you're like, I guess I am pretty.
Yeah.
But then it's like object permanence, right? You step away from the mirror and my body is the same fucking hands and fucking torso and legs it's ever been, right? Sometimes the stomach grows and distends a little bit, but it's
not even gonna go there.
Wise, it's the same fucking thing.
Right, it's the same physical vessel.
And then like you have an entirely different energy about you, and other people respond to that energy, and people are like, wow, she's a hot girl, and in your head you're like, I'm just a person, I'm probably not even hot, I don't even know if people think I'm a girl, but like obviously I people think I'm a girl because I look like a girl and I act like a girl and I am a girl, so like whatever. And also you don't have to look like a girl or act like a girl to be a girl because that's societal bullshit. But
It's been like Rue the
point
past 2
being,
days.
I don't
Wearing a dress.
understand. I don't understand how to be a hot girl, okay?
Mm.
I'm not aware of how hot girl social capital works. I'm aware of how it works externally and how I get fucking awkward around any girl. Like you want to Sophia's guide to if she's attracted to you, if you're hot or not, is she being awkward and quiet and not saying as much and avoiding eye contact? She's probably into you.
Yeah.
Is she having regular ass conversations? Yeah, she might be into you. She might just be avoiding stuff. I don't know. It's hard. It's complicated. But like, I don't feel hot,
Hmm.
so therefore I don't act like I'm hot, right? And so then I'll be dancing, and people are like, "Oh, she's like frigid. She's just over there dancing by herself." And then one person's like, "Can I dance with you?" I'm like, "Fuck yeah, bud!" And they're like, "Oh wow, okay." And then it's like I don't know. It's weird. I don't know how to occupy the hot girl space as a hot girl. You
I
know?
don't know how to occupy space in a club. Because like I don't think I've ever been to like a club, or no, I have like once or twice, and I don't know what to do because
Okay.
I can't
Okay.
pound down drinks like that. Like I can't pound down drinks. I can sip and socialize. That's like my
Okay.
thing.
Here's your problem. You ready for it?
But I don't
What
dance
club are you
either.
going to?
Well, so it was
What
a
club?
long time ago, like a gay club, right? So just your typical
Okay.
kind of dancing.
Here's your problem. You're not going nearly subculture enough to enjoy it. If you
Mm,
go to a goth rave, okay, like a goth fetish rave,
yeah.
do you know how much you're gonna fucking enjoy yourself being around other trans people where everybody's hot, wearing good goth outfits, and people are actually witches and no fucking witchcraft, and you can have a conversation about it?
Philly
And
used to
then
have a
you
club that
find
was a goth club, but it is no longer around. So I don't know if
I'll
I don't
tell you
know
a
where the
secret.
other I don't know where our goth scene is, honestly. I have no
Yeah,
clue. I'd have to ask around.
you gotta find the goth scene because like the thing that we do when one of our stores or places close down is we take another over, right?
Right.
Like there's a bunch out here in Toronto. I'm not gonna list my favorite local haunt, because I don't want it to get overrun. Um,
Right.
but there's a lot of good goth places,
That
and if there
popular.
isn't a place, pardon? Oh, it's
I
just
said
no,
because we're
it's the
that
space.
popular. No.
Look, no, but I realized something through magic. If you advertise things and you embody something and you truly love it, regardless of whether or not other people love it, give it a few years and suddenly the world is ludicrously attracted to whatever that you've been interested in for a hot minute and everybody's suddenly into it. And you're like, bruh, I've been doing this for like forever now. And people are like, oh, really? You know, it's like,
True that.
stupid. It's stupid. But anyways, if I start talking about, I almost said it. The goth club that I like to go to, it's gonna be fucking packed to the point where I can't even go anymore. Um, but 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 go to a goth fetish night sometimes, even if you're not like super into kink. The kink apparel tied with goth makes it really fun, and it attracts a lot of witches, right?
Yeah.
On a
Yeah, the
similar
overlap
note,
between all of those communities. So
so
much.
here's the fun thing, okay?
Hmm.
Sometimes where I'm at a goth event, I'm just dancing and I can tell there's people who are putting themselves on as magicians, but like there's a lot of fake fucking witches,
Oh yeah.
right?
Fake witches.
Last night was freaky. I don't know if my astral senses are getting better. I mean, I'm sure the omnimancy lessons are helping like me get my shit back on point again.
Hmm.
I had several instances last night where I could tell that people were magically scanning me and shit. It was so weird. And when another magician arrived, I like could tell they were a practitioner from the density of like their energy. Like they walked down the street and as they were coming, all conversation just naturally slowed and dipped down, like almost supernaturally, like everything kind of just like
Hmm. Like everything kind of
quieted
like
down.
paused.
And
Yeah.
then you hear the click, 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 click of their boots, like the click, click, like really loud. And I'm like, who fuck is this coming up behind me with your boots clicking, with your aura that fucking quiets down the whole fucking crowd?
Get
You
your
think I
boots
can't
and your
notice
aura
that
out of
shit?
here.
Sure as shit,
The
they
boots
were
have
a
their
real
own
deal
aura
practitioner.
surrounding. I was like, the boots have their own
And-
aura surrounding them.
And like I could tell that they could tell that there was somebody else there who was like, I don't have a lot of masking shit right now, so I'm a little like, look at me right now.
So
and they could kind of tell.
Corvex Creations in the chat was saying, as a guy from the jump EDM scene, join groups that you can spot from across the room. Talk superficial till they introduce themselves. If they don't, in a few minutes, say you have got to get back to your people. Had to manually learn social skills because of super small school. Yeah, super small school. So I did not go to small schools.
That's a good that's a good tip. If they introduce themselves, you hang out. If not, you just dip.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, it's kind of like a good.
I'll remember that too, because if I don't introduce myself, it's gonna make people want to dip. Autism.
So now I have 2 points that I can talk about that I can jump in on, because I went to a very small school, high graduating class of 23, and my high school graduating class was 117 from St. Hubert's 2008.
Yeah.
What's up? 15 years ago. I used to frequent the one well-known goth club in Philadelphia. That was the club itself. Yes, the club itself was called Nocturne.
My company, their first office was above Nocturne, which is hilarious.
And the fact that Jay himself, or back then, did not frequent this club blows my mind.
I wanted
but it
to,
doesn't blow my
get there.
Exactly. And as he has mentioned, he's not much of a club guy, but I have a feeling that if we had met in that club in 2006 and locked eyeliner and eyes across the room, we probably would be high school sweethearts. But Nocturne was a fantastic club for the fact that they did allow minors on certain nights. They just shut down the bar. They would shut down the bar, and they would allow minors to enter the club. And I have never had a bad experience inside Nocturne. I know a lot of people have, and you can Google Nocturne Philadelphia and find your own reasons why it was shut down. But I never had a bad experience, and it was a wonderful place to meet people who were similar to myself. And even though it was like 1 million people in a very small room, it doesn't feel like that, because if you move to the music, you kind of just flow through. But people would break off into their own groups and everything like that. And I found a sense of camaraderie from that club that I never, ever got to feel at school, because my schools were so small, and being a queer kid going to a Catholic school, you're not going to make a lot of friends. So I found my friends at Nocturne and the Bubble Night, which was their specific Thursday night for minors, where Jess McCullough took me for the first time, and I was like, oh, I'm home.
I do have something to chip in about, though. You never know. It might have been good that you and Jay didn't meet each other till way later on. Like, I'm gonna be real with you. There's somebody in my life who I care deeply about, who I'm probably never going to have around again in a meaningful capacity, because we met at the wrong time. I was deeply unhealed.
Dropping out.
Toxic. I drove her away. I was a shitty friend. She deserved better. She realized she deserved better. She told me she didn't want to be friends anymore. I struggled with it, but accepted that and didn't make her feel guilty about it. And I let the friendship end in a good, healthy way, which she appreciated. We went our own ways, and I grew as a human being, but I lost the connection to one of the most meaningful people who's ever been in my life because of how immature and unemotionally developed I was at the time. So you may have actually spared yourself losing the person you care most about. So
true. We say that a lot.
To anybody in the world who's like, I wish I met you sooner, don't. I wish I had met her later. I wish I had met her when I was healed and who I am now because I'm a lot fucking better off, and she would have been a lot better off, and I wouldn't have hurt her in the ways that I did. Pure and fucking simple.
And
I
that,
say that, so I do say that as we talk about that a lot.
yeah, we
do
did.
talk about that a lot because he knew of my feelings for him 14 years ago. He knew that I wanted him, and we did not
Mhm.
get together. We didn't speak for 6 years, and I really do believe
Not
Ellis
for a
ties
bad
of fate.
reason, just
Not for a bad
distance.
reason. We
Yeah,
we actually
separate.
naturally drifted and didn't speak for 6 years, and it was the ties of fate that brought us back together.
Did you just say Ellis ties the
Yeah.
fate?
It just yes, kind of in two separate sentences, not together, not the
The
same
ties of
sentence,
fate.
but
Like DKMU Ellis, right?
yes,
Ah, I didn't
yes.
know you were working with Our Lady.
Yeah,
Oh
we
yeah.
both have been.
Okay.
Yeah, we both have been.
I have a little short story for y'all after you're done seeing what you got to see now, because there's a thing about that with last night.
Oh,
Feel free to launch.
Okay,
That's a
okay.
good launching point.
The party was called the Red Queen.
yeah, that's cool.
Okay, I
Yeah.
was invited to it by a cutie
Mm.
who also I shouldn't say it, has a hookup for good stuff, right? That's tied to the egregore, obviously. And while I was on my way to her house, I was like, it's the Red Queen, so I should probably do Alice in Wonderland, right? Because I don't want to do a flagrant display of nationalism because it was also on Indigenous
Day.
Peoples' Day of Resistance.
Yeah.
I fuck Canada. That's my honest opinion about that. That's all I'm gonna say on
4th
that.
of July is coming up next week, so trust me, I'm
Yeah,
right there
fuck
with
the
you.
4th of July as well. But yeah, no, on my way to my friend's house where we were pre-drinking, I'm like, I'm going out. You know what Alice would do? Eat some mushrooms on an empty stomach after forgetting to eat all day.
Yes, she would.
And then I'm
We'll do
like
that.
walking out of the subway and I'm like really starting to come up. I'm like, this is too soon. What's happening? I forgot to eat. Oh shit. And then I'm like thinking about this video I saw from Legend of Zelda and like how Majora's Mask was significant because Link doesn't just save the world, he becomes a healer. Like his journey in that game, like his literal power is getting the Song of Healing and like fixing people's individual traumas, like, and that's what saves the world, is him taking the time to address people's individual sufferings, right? And then he ultimately
He is the
learns
hero
how
of
to
time.
heal Skull Kid. Oh, he's more than that at this point.
Yeah.
But he learns how to heal Skull Kid, right? And I was thinking about it. I'm like, our world needs both. It does need somebody to cut out the cancerous corruption, but it also needs those same people to be doing deep acts of compassionate healing. And that's what the world needs from me, is healing, right? And as I'm having this thought while I'm coming up, I walk by an EMT station. I'm like, that's synchronistic.
Healing. Yeah.
Have I told you my relationship to Rabbit?
Rabbit.
You have talked
Rabbit.
about your because you got the tattoo.
Rabbit.
Yeah.
It's a lot of things. They only really show up for me personally when I'm kind of in like right place at the right time, or like when they want me to catch a message. So like it's broad daylight. This is earlier than a rabbit should be out, and and it's a busy street, and there's just a rabbit chilling out on the front fucking thing of the EMT in an area where there's not even really food for it, and I'm like,
you're like, hello. Man,
and I'm like, okay, I see that. And then as I walk around the corner, like the ramen place has like a white rabbit, and it's like moving in the direction that I'm going, and I'm like, that's bullshit. And I keep going.
Did you see this
and
yesterday?
everything. Yes, this is last night.
That's really interesting because something that I learned. So like a lot of my witchy pagan people, like on Facebook, on the 1st of the month, they'll write rabbit rabbit. And I was like, why the fuck is everyone writing this? So I looked it up. Apparently, it's some kind of like superstition, folklore type thing. If you say rabbit rabbit on the first day of the month, it's supposed to bring you good luck. Yeah, so I thought that really fitting. I mean, that was yesterday, which was the 1st of the month.
Interesting.
And, yeah.
Yeah.
So
Also,
so then,
Indigenous Peoples Day.
Yeah, I mean,
You
like,
know, I mean,
That's
it's
amazing.
I don't know if it's actually technically Indigenous Peoples Day. Like the National Indigenous Peoples
No,
Day is actually on the solstice, which is
I
on the
feel like
first day of summer.
every
I
federal
say
holiday
Indigenous
should
Peoples.
be
Yes,
Indigenous
I called
Peoples
it
Day.
it
Indigenous
should be.
Peoples Day of Resistance because a lot of Indigenous people I know don't celebrate fucking flagrant displays of nationalism
Yeah,
like
Oh,
fucking Canada Day.
yeah.
So
exactly.
I don't want to say Happy Canada Day. I will say Happy Day of Resistance, because it's essentially what it is,
Mm-hmm.
right? Um, fuck Canada. If I haven't said that enough. That's also why I didn't want to wear red at the
South
party,
Park.
right? Like, don't get me wrong, red's one of my favorite colors, but it's Canada Day. Fuck wearing red on Canada Day. If I had orange, I would have wore it, right? So I went with the baby blue Alice in Wonderland. I was actually in Métis colors now that I think about it, because it was blue and white, which is pretty
It's
mwah.
like half the
Awesome.
trans flag, so there you go. All you needed was the
Awesome.
pink.
My bra was pink,
There you
so
go.
I'll have you know there was a whole ass trans flag.
There you go. You were a
Done.
giant trans flag.
Magnifique.
But yeah, no. And then when I was walking back to my friend's house to watch German porn while waiting for the lift prices to come down, because the lift prices
That's a big mood.
skyrocket at about 3 a.m. because a
Oh
lot of
yeah, because
the
that's when the bars are all
stuff
closed.
closes. Yeah,
Yeah.
at 3 to 2 a.m. So it starts to skyrocket, and then it just nosedives after 4 a.m.
Mm.
So it goes from like $30 or like $26 to get a lift home. This is Canadian, not an
Yeah,
American,
yeah.
to like $16 to
That's
get a lift
significant. That's a
home.
$10 drop though. That's significant.
That's more than a $10. It can be
Yeah.
like it can be more than like here's a good example too. I was trying to get my mattress, my brand new mattress, this one,
Oh,
yay, that I
beautiful.
got from my friend. I actually cast a spell for that. I'm like, I need a new bed and I can't afford it. I need a twin-sized bed, twin size because it's small and it'll fit me, but it needs to be foam for my back, but it also needs to be stiff. And then my friend, who I meet later on that year,
Mm.
moves into a new place, moves out of their parents' place because they were staying with them temporarily after a divorce,
Mm.
getting their shit together. They moved into their new place, and they're like, "This bed's too tiny. I was only having a small bed because it was my parents' place. I don't need to sell it." It's like we're hanging out on mushrooms a week ago. Yeah, there's a theme here in my life. And they're like, "Do you know anybody who needs a bed?" And I'm like,
Me.
"Me?" And they're like,
Me.
"Really?" And I'm like, "Yeah, that bed there?" And they're like, "Yeah." And I go and poke it. I'm like, "This is perfect." And they're like, "Great, you can have it." I'm like,
That's
"Ah."
Aw.
awesome.
Yeah, that's always a good
It's
feeling.
amazing.
And so I've actually been sleeping for the past. Let's see, I got it on Tuesday. I didn't realize how bad I was sleeping because like I was sleeping on a mattress that's about an inch thick, and
Ugh.
it's like
Mm.
not a mattress. It was like a
Yeah.
bedroll
Like a
that you
camp
roll out on the
pad, but yeah.
ground.
Yeah.
It was like a Japanese certain type of
Oh,
mattress thing. I
bedroll.
can't remember what it's called.
Mm.
Yeah, it was like one of those. Let me tell you, if you're not back sleeping, you shouldn't be doing a bedroll. You know
No.
how I sleep? On my stomach.
Oh, your
Mm.
stomach sleep. I can't
Ooh.
stomach sleep.
So actually,
Can't do it.
I can't. I can only stomach sleep when I'm on hard surfaces. It's like this weird conundrum. I can actually sleep on my
Mm.
back when I'm on this cushy bed because of how much it sinks in and how it keeps my posture. But on a flat surface, it moves my head too far back like that, and I can never get comfortable. So even on a flat surface, those bed rolls are not that good for me. Whereas like I can back sleep on this bed. This bed's so good, I can back sleep, I can side sleep, I can stomach sleep, and it fucking holds me, and it does an even position for each. So I'm like over the moon
Nice.
having a good bed for the first time in my
Mm.
33 going on 30 fucking 4-year-old life. It's still secondhand. I've still never owned a brand new bed because I'm just a
Doesn't
broke
matter.
fucking bitch like that.
Beds are expensive.
Oh, fuck,
Mattresses are fucking expensive.
You don't have to
fucking
tell
they are.
us,
We
the
bought,
people
you
who
know,
have
like
it.
we went to a store and bought a new one, and oh my god, it was a lot of money. And we went
And then we
like
got
the
bed
cheap
bugs.
method. But anyway, that's resolved. That was resolved a long time ago. We're fine now.
You know what? You know why I don't get bed bugs?
Mm.
I cast magic against it. I
Yeah,
cast
that
magic
is
against it.
that's something that I've been looking at my big book of 5,000 spells about like spells to repel like insects and pests and things like that. Um like just like my cats are indoor cats, and like they'll get fleas and they'll get this and they'll get this, and I'm like, they're
Oh,
indoor cats, but I'm like, I think it's because it's
so
Philly, you know what I mean? We're in the city
by
and
the way,
mm.
I actually super do want you to sign up for Omnimancy if you're at all interested
I
in it.
do.
Like,
I
if
am
you,
planning to, yeah.
I am going to be so over the fucking moon when you start studying. Rue, if you're at all interested, sign up for it with Jay, because Jay's already going to be carving out the time for the classes, and it helps. Like, I have two friends who are doing it who are a couple. One of them would probably never go through it if their partner wasn't doing it, but they are. So they have the I'm going to do it too, and they're getting so many fucking benefits out of it. Like,
Mm,
I love it. So like, hella recommend that y'all both apply. I can send my little, yeah, these people are good people
mm.
recommendation, because like, I fucking fully expect you to complete the course. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
like,
Is a one
you're the
year,
you're the type of person.
like a
2 years.
2 year study?
It's
Okay.
2 years. You don't pay anything. The real cost is the commitment, because you have to show up every week
Yeah, yeah.
for 2 years for about 2 to 4 hours, depending on the length of the class, because they will vary in the severity of the topic and the length, right? Then you have to test, and there's note taking, and then after you've tested, part of the curriculum is then teaching the next people who come along later, right? So that's how the group makes everything work. Is the people who are teaching you are doing it on volunteer because they got taught by volunteers, right?
I love that.
um they joke about it being a pyramid scheme, but
Yeah.
that's just because they want to be really upfront about, hey, we do actually expect this bit of labor, right? And
Mm.
that actually helps my friend feel less bad about it, because she's like, the fact that there's unpaid labor in there makes me feel better, because I feel like I'm not like waiting for some scheme down the line where people are going to
Right.
fuck me over. It's like, you know what the deal is, and you're expected to turn around and teach. It's not unpaid labor, though. I hate calling it that.
Mm-mm.
Volunteer work, like volunteering to teach other people because someone taught you, is a great thing, and I hella support it. And like,
And
fuck,
it's
like I tell people,
important.
martial arts will charge you to study in a class where you will then go to teach the lower belts, while the black belt teaches, or like the teacher teaches like the higher belts, because that's how all of that chain of command shit works. And it's going to be the same thing in a magical system that's worth its fucking salt. It wants you to be able to be a teacher. That's how it fucking survives, right? So I think that's actually the most reasonable expectation a magical order could ask out of you. Not your money, but your actual time and dedication, and then your willingness to be
To
a part of
teach. Yeah.
it. Those
Mhm.
are actual costs, like actual costs, not money, not like this weird ethereal thing. Because like, a rich person can throw money at it and it doesn't mean anything, but everybody
Exactly.
has a set number of days in their life, and if you're committing 2 years to it, you're committing 2 fucking years to it, and that's a price that everybody pays, you know?
I've
So
noticed that
I actually hella stand that.
there's a similar theme kind of going on with like the gray school classes that I'm doing. So basically it's how the classes are kind of structured. Like you read a thing and then you do some sort of like response to whatever it is, or some sort of exercise, and then there's usually like a video, like a pre-recorded video lecture that you watch. That's usually like the basic structure of the classes that I've done so far at like the beginning levels. And a lot of like the themes of what they're talking about right now is like they're talking about like the different stages of like, going along your wizardry sort of path. Like first you're an apprentice, then you're a journeyman, then you're a master. And but they say like master doesn't mean perfection. Master means that the best way for you to grow as a master at that point is to teach, is to share the knowledge that you've learned. And so they like they had this little story that we read. It was like you're in this cavern and you have this light in your hands, and then you see these souls going around and they have their hands out, have any light, and so you give a soul some light. And then but then you're like kind of sad because your light is a little dimmer now because you just gave that away. And then you're walking through the cabin and then you see this golden woman, and she's like, she's just has all this gold light, this abundance of gold light, in her hands. And like you're just like, I feel sad, like I'm weaker now because I gave my power away, I gave my light away.
What?
And she's like, no, you don't understand. Like I'm paraphrasing this story, but like it's kind of like you say to her, uh it was like written from like a second second person perspective. The story is like, you walk through the cavern,
Okay.
this happens to you. So that was kind of the story. And so like you come up to this woman in this golden light. She's like, I am a wizard, and I am giving, like, I'm here to teach you a lesson about magic. When you share your light, you don't give it away. It doesn't
Dim it.
It doesn't dim it. It doesn't weaken it. And she's like, you were so focused this whole time on the dimming light in your hands that you didn't notice the cavern behind you was completely illuminated. So like that was like kind of like the idea of the story. And I agree with that because I think like not everyone is going to be not everyone is built to be a teacher. You know what I mean? Not everyone's built to like run a class regularly and have workshops and lectures and things like that. Like not everyone is that kind of person. But even just from a perspective of like you've been practicing magic for a long time and just this younger person or someone just new to the path just crosses paths with you, I do feel like you kind of have a like you should at least guide them to like somewhere they should go, especially if they're asking for that. You know what I mean? Impart your knowledge, share that. And I got to thinking about the thing in the Harry Potter books that did make me have that disconnect as a kid. The main thing in that universe, right? I was thinking about this. I remember it's like in one of in the books, Harry and Hagrid first meet up. They're shopping for his school supplies. And Harry says, okay, Hagrid, like, there's this whole world. Magic is real. Like, all this amazing stuff. Why do you hide from the muggles? Like, why do you keep everything so hidden and separate? And Hagrid says, oh, well, then the muggles will be wanting magical solutions to all their problems. And, like, as a kid, like, I kind of glossed over it and I just kept reading and I was like, oh. But, like, I reflected on that now as an adult and I'm like, that's so sad. Like, if we can have like imagine because like in the Harry Potter universe they conjure food out of thin air, and so like by the logic of that universe it's like no one would ever have to be hungry.
You could end. Yeah. Well, I mean, that's also the argument against capitalism too. That's essentially rich people's society in a nutshell. Their money allows them to conjure food and resources out of thin air, but those resources will go to waste if not utilized. But then they have so much that in their insular society that they can't use it all, and everybody else goes without because of it. Yeah, Harry Potter is basically a lesson on 101, why capitalism bad, and magic is basically a loose allegory for wealth. Except in this regard, except actually Harry is actually also low-key kind of rich from his wizarding parents, right?
Yes, he is.
But
he
don't
does
worry,
inherit
don't worry.
small...
There's a token poor kid in there with the Ron Weasley. Fuck, let's just make it a whole family. In fact, fuck, let's kill a poor kid too in the end, just to make the weight of the situation have fucking gravity.
I mean, there was a lot of emotional things in that book, but what's interesting is like that first scene of the Weasley house, like yeah, they're poor, but the dishes are washing themselves. A sweater is knitting itself. Food is being cooked.
Like, I'm gonna be real.
It's crazy.
How do you be poor when you got magic that can create things out of thin air?
Yeah.
When you can like literally spellcraft a house. They choose to live that style because they want to live that style.
Right,
long and short of it.
Like
right?
they don't need extravagant. And I'm like, why do I need extravagant things if my dishes wash themselves? If I can conjure a fucking cheeseburger out of thin air, why do I care about anything else? What do I need money for?
Why couldn't you just, command the trees to fucking shape into a house and you live in a fucking perfect cottage in the woods? Like, it's stupid. It's really a thin veneer when you poke into it. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was just thinking, I was like, in that universe, if everyone shared their light, if the wizards shared their magic with the world at large, they could create a fucking utopia. And so like I kind of feel like that's sort of our goal, mission, whatever purpose as occultists and sorcerers.
I have a lot of thoughts and feelings on this. I don't think that everybody should be doing magic pure and simple. Some people are not of the right, how do I put this? They're just not going to use it in a way that's really constructive. Or some people also are like fundamentally opposed to it in what they do with their lives, and that's fine, right? Magic also, though, the better I get with it and the more that I see, I've heard people do some really interesting claims where they'll say magic is this, and they try and put it into a box, right? Like
Yeah,
I heard
that's your first
someone
problem.
at the goth club who's also a practicing witch. She was like, well, you know, magic only really works on people who believe in it. I'm like, no. And they're like, really? I'm like, not at all. And they're like, oh, I seem to remember you cursing somebody back when we met. I'm like, not really. No, I don't curse many people. um, and the thing I found from Omnimancy is like their shit works, and it'll work on people who don't even necessarily believe in it, you know. And I'm starting to see stuff happen that I knew was possible, and I used to do when I was younger, but I kind of fell out of seeing. So I stopped like remembering what it's really like when shit comes and grabs you by the boo boo. You know what I mean?
Mm.
When like your magic work gets out from underneath you, right? Like I started doing some of the casting stuff from Omnimancy, and it's like I'm recognizing other magicians in public when they walk up. I'm just like averting problems that would happen to me as they happen, just because I have fucking wards and proper shielding up that are adaptive to those situations, right? I walked through traffic last night accidentally at the wrong time, and all the cars just let me do it. Like,
That was also another thing that I kind of noticed too, like what you were saying about omnimancy or any really study of magic is like the thing that you really
Echo.
are paying is your time and commitment, right? That is really what you're paying. Now, in terms of like something that's a more organized thing, like
Echo.
oh no, I think Rue's thing is picking up my voice somehow.
Slightly.
I
Only
will try to.
occasionally.
Um,
Keep going.
Sorry, I was bending my head down. That's why.
no, it's all good. So like something I did notice within the Gray School. So the Gray School is something that it is a paid thing that you sign up for. You can pay $30 a month or like $200 for the year, whichever one you want to do.
Oh, is that work through it at your own pace
Work
one?
through it at your own pace. Yep.
Shit, the girl I was hanging out with last night might actually be doing the Gray School for her study.
Cool. Cool. I wonder.
Yeah.
You'll have to tell me what their name is. I could look in the little Discord and see.
I wouldn't know what her
Hmm.
Discord name
Yeah.
is. I know her legal name. That's not gonna
Yeah.
get you anywhere.
Yeah, I don't know if you know the magical name or whatever.
Mm-mm.
But so what I've noticed, so like I'll watch the like the pre-recorded lectures, right? And I love them. Like just in the one class, like the headmaster Kingsley, he's very animated. He's very animated when he talks. I was like, okay, this is a cool lecture. And then since it's pre-recorded, it was in a session with other students. So like he was giving a lecture to other students, and so he'd get to a point in the lecture, like, all right, let's open up for some questions, and he'll just call in, apprentice so and so, like, what questions do you have? Like, what are you thinking about? Like, trying to engage, how you do. And some of these people engage, just like we do here on the podcast. We're talking about, we have discourse, and some people go, can't think of anything, and they just sit there
What?
in silence. Like we're having this whole discussion about magic, wizardry, the occult, being a wizard. What does it mean? What do like we're having this like deep sort of discussion, and you're just like, I can't really think of anything. And they have this like blank stare. And so, and like part of me is like, okay, y'all are paying money to like do this. No one's making you do this. You, of your own free will, paid money to take this course and sit there and go, I have nothing to contribute.
So I know what's
Blows my
causing
mind.
that, if you will. I have a really good idea on what's causing that, if you will. So a lot of people want to learn magic, right? Straight up. Like there's a lot of people I meet who will say that they're witches, and then I'll say, oh, what do you study? And they're like, actually, I don't really have anything I study yet, which is actually kind of an answer I'm okay with. Like, let's be real. When I ask somebody what they study or what they do, it's not a judgment. I just want to have
I
a
just want to
conversation.
know. I want to know what your baseline
Even
is.
if you admit to me, I just kind of read, I'm never going to be like, oh, you just read, fuck you. The only time I get mad is when someone tries to put themselves on like they're something they're not, right? Don't act like you're fucking witch Jesus if you're absolutely brand new just because you have goth goddess outfits. Goth goddess aesthetic is definitely a power. And if you actually understood what you were doing, you could say, I am heavy about that charm magic, right? Because that's essentially what you're doing. But it doesn't mean that you're like irrelevant notification. It doesn't mean that you're like over here knowing how to fucking cast spells and do shit. You know what I mean? So someone says to me, I want to learn, I get excited, right? Because I'm like, I know where you can learn, you know? Or if they're like, I'm looking for stuff to read, I'm like, I got books, I got fucking library resources. If they say, I practice this, I say, hell yeah, I practice this, you know? But if they say, oh, you know, I'm just a witch, I'm like, okay, what does that mean though? And they're like, I'm just, I do that thing. And you're like,
there was
what?
an
What thing?
episode of Kindred Spirit. That's not a word. Spirits is not a word. Kindred Spirits. We were watching that show, and there was a woman. Her house was haunted. You know, had some kind of paranormal activity going on. But she herself was she said, "I am a psychic. I'm a medium," and you know, she had these abilities. Apparently, she had I forget the name. Is it called psychometry? When you can touch a thing, is that what it's called? When you can touch a thing and you can get like the
Yes.
memories and energy.
Well, yeah.
Whatever that
That's
is.
the term
Yeah, so that's what, you know, she said that, you know, where her skills were at. But it was just like the weirdest thing. So I was like, okay, so she has this whole like room with all these crystals and all this like occulty shit in it, and she's like, yeah, you know, I'm just like so, but like there's all this hauntings
so
and
scared.
I'm so scared, and I'm like,
of the spirit in my house.
I'm like, you are a psychic, you are a medium, you claim to work within these, you know, sort of magical woo supernatural currents. Like, you can't handle this shit on your own. You called a TV show? And so part of me was like, is this just a ploy to like make you like to get the world to know who you are?
It really's not. It really isn't, because they don't use their real names on the show.
I know,
They
but
don't
like,
even use their magical names on the show. They don't. They like.
uh,
They really don't, because anytime you try to search for someone from that show, it doesn't pop up with anything. They use fake names in
okay.
the show. Like, it is Adam and Amy, and shout out to
Yeah,
Adam
yeah.
and Amy, because we fucking
Yeah, they're the
love them
hosts of
and
the
we
show.
talk. They're the hosts of the show, but
Yeah.
they make, and Chip Coffee, executive producer.
Yeah.
But the people that call them, that are featured on the show, do not use their real names.
But I think the weirdest thing was like they were in their sort of like they were doing their, I'm calling a
I
seance or
completely.
session. But when she touched it was like something. It was some object, and they were like, we have found that like this object belonged like this could hold like negative energies or something like that. And then she touched it and she just went, oh yeah. And I'm like, I don't
My goosebumps.
I don't really find that valid. Like, that's not validating to me. Like,
And that's why
yeah, it's
it's a
haunted.
paranormal investigation show and
I
not
know.
an occult show.
I know, but they blur the lines. Like, they toe that
Of
line.
course they blur.
They toe
Yes, they
that
do.
line, and I'm like, you bitches, just tell, like, come out as witches already. Just come out as occultists already. Yeah, Adam and Amy, just do it, because you are. Corvax was saying in the chat, you know, like, you got to know what language people speak magically. You know, you got to kind of know where they're coming from, because it's such a broad thing. And they were saying, you know, you'd be surprised at the unevenness of average practitioner skill set, and I agree with that. You know, like, because someone could say, like, I've been practicing magic for 15 fucking years. Like, for me, like, it's like half my life. I'm 32, so like 16 years of my life, basically half of my life, has been dedicated to the study of magic. Was it always what I'm doing now? No. You know what I mean? It was different, but at the same time, someone could say, I've been studying magic for 15 years, but they got one book on the shelf. It's the same book that sometimes they thumb through, and then they put a quartz on their desk and they're like, witchcraft. So I mean, there's different levels, you know. But they could be like, I've been doing this practice for 15 years. It's like, okay, well, maybe expand.
and I've met magicians who've been doing shit for 5 years who can glass that person in a
Mm-hmm.
mage fight. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Exactly.
it, but the thing is, when someone's been seriously practicing for any given amount of time, they're the thing is they can wind up better than they think. So here's a hot example. I thought I was low key kind of dog shit because I didn't have a lot of the really out there bullshit happening. And when I do have out there bullshit happen, it's so strange that I feel like I can't explain it to people, especially because I rock spirit model
Oh, like you
for
felt like
like
you
I
didn't
had a
have enough weird things happening in
let,
your life.
let me explain. No. Let me
Mm.
explain. Let me explain. I started off doing magic in a purely non-specified model. I
Right.
started off actually no, it's a lie. When I was a kid, I started off with psionics, so I started energy. I knew what the fuck I was doing because I practiced that shit fucking daily. Okay. You practice anything daily, you get good at it,
Yeah.
right? I was at the point as a kid where I could make a cyball out of nothing and then condense it down into one fucking finger. Like literally get my whole hand tingling and then pull it all into one finger by will. How the fuck do you do that? Right.
Right.
And I learned that like when I had tingles in my arm, I could use the same energy movement technique to just pull them into my body, like the energy of it, and the numbness in my hand would go away. Just like really weird shit like
So you
that,
had like
right?
a natural
Um,
affinity to energy manipulation.
no, I
Mhm.
studied it
Mm.
when I was 12. If I had studied spirit model and been given offerings, I would have been having a different paradigm reaction. But I was working specifically with the energy model, right? I did other things that fucked me up, like studying Kundalini when I was a kid because I came across a meditation page that
Yeah.
I did that caused me to have the whole thing happen. It's a fucking story.
Yeah.
Um, but point being, I got good at that because that's what I was doing. And then I took a long break. I got into magic again. I took a long break because my mom made me get out of it because she was Catholic at the time. I got back into magic by doing divination with tarot specifically.
Mm.
Then I got into studying magic in the DKMU because that's really where I started getting back into it. And I want to say I actually veered back into magic in the psychological model to begin with because it was very like, here's how the human mind interacts with stuff. And it was actually a little bit information model too, right? Um, and then as time went on, I like picked up a lot of ceremonial magician tendencies. I like studied a lot of different. I like dove into multiple different paradigms so I could understand different slices of shit, so I could get the bigger picture of stuff. Because I do chaos magic or chaos magic, if you're saying it correctly. And then that led me to kind of get into omnimancy, which circles me back to my roots, which is energy and astral work, right? So I basically took I started doing energy work in astral when I was 12. I did it for like 2 years and I got really good at it before the whole thing happened. Um, and then I took like a 20-year break. Yeah, like a 21-year break. And now I'm back on it and I'm having results better than a lot of the shit that I did in ceremonial. But the problem with spirit based magic, and that's, oh, sorry. I had 2020 happen and I veered heavily into spirit based magic
Mm.
for reasons I don't want to disclose on the podcast. Um, and I basically from like 2020 to now, like just recently, I was doing mostly just spirit model. And spirit model, when you don't have a tradition to run it with, is really fucky because you're basically just listening to all the spirits around you with no real guidance, and you're working through synchronicity. You're not doing certain techniques that you should be because you don't have somebody saying, hey, here's a system of how you do this, right? Because
Right.
normally spirit work is like tied to a specific practice, right? So I tried to hit relevant cultural touchstones without doing anything that I shouldn't be doing, which is to say, not a lot, right? Which basically equates to like giving thanks, and like asking for things to happen. So like my practice kind of bottlenecked for a little bit, and then I got an omnimancy, and I realized I could just do this shit for direct will spell casting, and that I was very good at this, and I had forgotten I was very good at this. So my sights come back to me. Like last night when I was dancing in the club, there was a couple instances because I often dance with my eyes closed. Like saw an eye, like a very specific eye with like a symbol behind it. And I opened my eye and looked in the direction where my mind pointed me. And there was a dude just fucking staring at me. And I'm like, oh yeah, you're trying to fucking scan me. I get it. And I just like kept them out, right? Shit like that didn't really happen before, but it's just fucking happening again. So how you can relate to other magicians and how you can share your practice and how you're able to do things affects how you feel about yourself and how the community will treat you, right? So if you're doing your own obscure spirit magic practice, that's totally valid, but there's not necessarily much of a conversation that can happen with people with that.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes you can struggle for efficiency in spellcasting if you don't have a given tradition that you're working on. So that's my extremely wordy response to why.
I just think overall is like I think that's something I'm trying to do. Is sort of like formulate an outline of what I would give to someone as like a guideline of what, okay, I want to do magic, how do I do it, where do I start, you know? And so I think like that's what I'm just kind of constructing in my head as I go along in my studies, is sort of like what are things that you should have a basic understanding of, a basic mastery
I
of.
got three basic things,
Mm,
and it all comes from psionics and energy works.
mm,
Okay, everybody should know how to make a psi ball, right? You can hold your hand out, you gather the energy there. You can gather it from around you. You can gather it from inside you. I don't recommend gathering it from inside you. That's there's a term that we came up with in DKMU called mage drop, which is similar to, or witch drop, which is similar to sub drop.
mm,
Where you do a spell and it depletes the fuck out of you because you're using all of your internal resources and you're
yeah,
just fucking wiped after. We've all been there. We've all been there.
yeah.
Omnimancy taught me to cast from outside myself, right? Which is funny because I had been doing that from the beginning when I was working with the Scion Guild, and they taught me not to. They told me to draw from my internal reserves because this would eventually teach me to be able to develop more, right?
Mm,
It's fucking bullshit. You will develop more, but I can grab and utilize more externally from me, and I will expend my own energy in the process by manipulating that energy, right? So,
mm-hmm.
like, it's a whole fucking thing. I will get better as I do that. I don't need to be burning myself out doing fucking inefficient magic, right? I don't need to lift with my bare hands. I have a lever, thank you. Um, so, Cyball is technique number one. The next technique, a shield. It's like a bubble you put around you. You take the Cyball, you make it hollow, you put it over you. You got a shield, right? Omni also talks about tethers a lot, and I'm going to mention them because they're on the public facing knowledge. If I talk about tethers, no one's going to bat an eye. It's not like I'm getting into private topics. But we have like a part of our Cyball and other stuff that is plugged into things that takes the energy from it and plugs it in.
Mm,
Tethers are also something that kind of happens naturally. Like when you cast a spell, you have a natural tether on it tying you to your spell work, right?
mm-hmm.
So you can trace a spell's tethers to find the person who did it, which is actually what I did that night when I had the vision of the eye with the symbols, right? I just fucking followed where the thread was and it was pointing me in the direction of the dude, right? Um, so everybody should know how to do tethers. Everybody should know how to do shields, and everybody should know how to do cyballs. The fourth very simple thing is sensing, like being able to develop symbols in your mind that you know correlate to stuff, and getting a dialed in symbol set so that you can understand what your visions mean, because they're not always going to be like in pure English. Like you might ask how somebody feels and then get like a flower withering, right,
Right.
in your mind. Or you might get like the color orange, right? And to some people, orange is their favorite color. They'll be like, fuck yeah, orange. Or if you are somebody who like worked in construction or didn't like that, you might fucking hate orange. You might want to stay away from it, right? So I could get orange off of somebody and it could mean one thing, and if somebody else gets a different color, that's irrelevant. The important part is getting the same meaning and dialing in your own symbols, and what they mean to you. So sensing, fucking shields, tethers, and cyballs. Everybody should know how to do those four fucking things. Period. End. If you haven't learned them, I encourage you to just look them up. You can find them at anywhere, basically. The Scion Guild would tell you how to do that shit.
Mm.
any old energy working book. You could literally do exactly what I just told you now, and it would work. Um, it's not super complicated. And yeah, if you were to like literally just practice those 4 fundamental things, you would have a lot of results. And you can also like literally just take a Cyball, give it information and tell it to do stuff and release it, and that's a spell, right? And if you need it to work better, you put in more energy, right? You put in more information, you code it more specifically. Here's a really good example. I was playing Fire Emblem and I cast a spell because my one character was getting really bad level ups because everything's percentile, so you try to game it with magic. And I cast the spell. I want this guy to have better luck when he levels up for his stats, okay? You want to know what happened when he leveled up? He got luck, just 1 point into his luck. And I'm like, that's not what I was fucking asking for.
I
You know what I mean?
agree with you, like on all the points that you kind of said of like those techniques. I was kind of thinking of maybe something of maybe like over the scope of your magical, like the magical outline package. And so like kind of what I was thinking is like you definitely want to understand like grounding and shielding. You know, you definitely want to understand that. So like energy manipulation, that's what you want to understand. And the 2 basic things you want to take from that is, you know, grounding and shielding.
Oh,
And
I don't
then
ground.
I mean,
That's not
it's
something I
generally a
ever
thing
do,
that
actually.
yeah, I always try to be grounded when I'm doing magic. But like so like
Totally
energy
forget to.
manipulation, and then I think like the other things that would kind of come in is like you definitely want to study like folklore. You want to understand like what comes from folklore, what comes from myth. You know, like you want to understand like the magic that comes from there, the magic that's been passed down, because that's how magic gets passed down, is through stories. I was thinking of, I forgot. It was like energy manipulation, folklore,
Breathing.
and huh?
Breathing.
Well, yeah, I think that kind of falls into energy manipulation for me. Is like,
I'm
yeah,
just being a
I mean,
bitch.
yeah.
Rue actually has a really good point. Breathwork is its entire own subcategory,
Mm.
and it is a whole thing you can focus on, and it has a lot of power, and there's a lot of shit you can do with it. Like, there's in certain traditions, they have deliberate styles of breathing. One that I've learned to do naturally is breathing from the belly and filling up this way rather than from here and trying to inflate yourself. Like, you start low and you expand down there,
Mm.
and you like draw very
Mhm.
full breaths. It really
Mhm.
helps. Most people actually go through life only working on like the top 20 to 40%, I want to say, of
Mm.
their lungs. Don't quote me, I'm not a biologist. Um, but most of us do not take really deep breaths, and
No.
it can help calm us, it can help center us, it can help do a whole bunch of stuff. Like when I was having a really bad trip one time, what centered me more than anything else was just breathing and the
Mm-hmm.
joy of it, like the ability to have that motion, that even if I didn't have a body, even if I didn't have senses, there would still be the and
Mhm.
there would still be the because
Definitely
if there
like
was no motion, I
taking,
would not be alive.
yeah, and like definitely taking like deep calming breaths, like that works for me. But like breath work in and of itself, I focus to, because they're like breathe in for 4 counts, breathe out for 5, blah, 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 and I focus more on the counting and more on the fucking numbers, and then I get distracted and I'm like, ah shit, I
How about
miscounted, I
this?
didn't do this. So I
How
kind
about
of just
this
focus
instead?
on like a pattern, like I kind of get like a rhythm kind of going.
hmm What about like the breathe in a color of energy you like and breathe out a color of energy you don't like? I hate the low key breathe in white, clean light,
Right?
breathe
Yeah.
out dirty, dark energy. Shut up,
I
shut
would
up,
just
shut up.
Yeah.
mm, I would just like to say my first Reiki session taught me that exact lesson though.
I
And it
know.
did work for me as
It
someone who
does.
has trauma in their past, and as someone who has physical disabilities. It's hard for you to differentiate. It can. I wouldn't completely discredit it.
What I'm saying is we can decouple that technique from the good white and the bad dark
Right. Yeah. Just
language,
whatever
Oh
right?
yeah.
color.
That's why I
Yeah.
said
Whatever
that's why
color.
if you notice I said breathe in a color you like,
Mhm.
breathe out a color you don't like. I'm not saying anything's good or bad. I have decoupled it from the whole white magic is good magic, black magic
Oh, yeah.
is bad magic
Yeah, stay away
dichotomy
from.
because it's false and irrelevant.
I think I would put that on my list of magic. Don't listen to things that are super like polarized. Like there is no white
Oh,
magic,
good
there is no
lord.
black magic, there is no
Yeah.
Mhm.
none of that bullshit.
As an
Breathe in a
envy, I think
color
I can
you like.
attest to that.
Mhm.
Mhm.
As an
Breathe in a
envy that
color
was
you like,
told.
breathe out when you don't.
Mm.
Sorry, we're cutting each other off.
No, you're absolutely fine. It's just no, I am never one of those black and white people because
Mm-mm.
as an MB that was told that I shouldn't be able to practice magic because you're not neither. So what energy do you tap into? And I'm like,
The cosmic
we don't subscribe
force
the
of,
cosmos
like, I don't know.
or hell. No,
You know what's an
because I paint
interesting
my nails
energy?
blue.
You know what's an interesting energy? Magenta.
Blessed be.
Well, it's
Do you
red
know
and
why?
pink. So it's like, is that
It's
what
pink as
magenta is?
purple.
Pink, oh,
It's
bright
not a
pinkish
real color.
purple.
It's not.
You're hallucinating magenta. It's not a real color that we can visually perceive.
Hmm.
It's
Also,
not
That's
actually
like-
a
on the
science
color
fact.
spectrum.
We do not
Also, for
have
people
the
that are
ability to perceive magenta.
colorblind, yeah, and for people that are
Mhm.
colorblind or have different levels of color blindness, like I don't really even know how that
I do. I can see
translates in
magenta.
yeah, I can see magenta. I'm saying, but there are people who are just colorblind, like they see black and white, like people in the world,
Yeah.
or
Well-
just
Well,
reds and
I don't-
greens or whatever.
I think colorblindness is one of those things that's greatly misunderstood too, because as somebody who has mild deuteranopia, I tell people I have mild deuteranopia and they're like, oh, so you can't see most reds? I'm like, no, I can see like 90% of reds. There's like subtle shade differences I can't tell. If you put two colors that are identical to each other with like a slight gradient difference, I'm probably going to say they're the same color. You put two ones, even a slightly reasonable difference away, and I can tell you what the difference between the two of them is, right? I'm not like blind to it, but I have a reduced pigmentation on what I see, right? So I don't know what you see, and I've never seen what you see, and you don't know what I see, and you've never seen what I see. So we are operating using a different like semiotic language, essentially. I don't know if that's the right term to use. It's probably not. But like neither of us truly understand each other's experience, and so we kind of are always going to have these weird misrepresentations about it. Like people always seem to think that I see less colors than I do, and I just don't know what, like, I can't even see when people blush most of the time. Seriously, like if it's a subtle blush, I can't even really tell. I won't even notice it. So guess how hard that makes flirting when you're autistic and colorblind. That's why I'm like, you gotta
Oh,
tell
that
me
picked
you're
up.
into me.
Right. You need a giant flashing neon sign.
I need you to grab me by the throat. Well, don't grab me by the throat. That'd be a
No.
violation of consent. But grab me by the throat verbally and say I'm into you.
Hot. We are a little bit over an hour and 17. Corvax was saying when they blush, their whole head turns red. That's me. I get very red very quickly. Especially
I
when I'm
don't know what
drinking.
direction my camera's pointing, so I don't know how to point to him. You turn
Yeah.
visibly red on camera.
Yes, I'm probably a little red now because I'm getting hot. Because
You are. That's what I.
I'm turning red.
Well, I can see certain levels of blushing. Like if you're blushing hard, I can see. But if it's like a slight blush, nah. Either that or I just might not notice it because I don't. I see reds, but I don't always visualize it the same way. Like if I put on blush on my cheek, I see it, right? But if somebody's face is red, I'm just like, oh, some people naturally have more red faces. And I don't know. I'm weird. It's hard. Life's difficult.
Yes.
Yes, it is.
So I really liked our conversation today. We really didn't come in here with a plan or a topic or anything, but I like that we kept it on a lot of magical topics and not just like a.
It worked.
Yes, it worked out really well.
We always do better when we're talking about the woo.
We do. Well, that's what we do here. Any kind of like concluding thoughts to kind of wrap up today's discussion?
If you're having a bad time at a club, you're probably not at a subculture specific enough for you. Just saying. Like, I have a friend, and he's like struggled to have intimate relationships, and I realized the whole reason he's done that is because he's never been to a goth club. Like, homie would fit in so well in that environment. He'd be like a fucking fish in water, but he's over there flopping around in the fucking
Normie clubs.
Alps. He's not even going to normie clubs. I'm gonna drag this cunt to Toronto. I'm gonna buy him a ticket to a fetish party. I'm gonna make him put on some freaky shit and say, go have fun. And he's gonna have the time of his life.
Excellent.
But find your subculture, party within it, and fucking serve your community well, because that's how communities live and thrive, is on you.
Mm-hmm. Lay the groundwork for the future. That's what we do.
Build it, and then bitches will come.
Dismantle the patriarchy, even though Pride Month is over. Be gay, do crimes, and a special fuck you to Donald Trump and Ron DeSantis, who is in my city right now, being hosted by Moms for Liberty, and fuck Moms for Liberty and everything that they think they stand for. Sincerely, a trans queer witch in Philadelphia.
Fuck yeah.
Oh, did you hear about that guy who's running a presidential election just to spite Trump?
No.
I can't remember
Tiger
who his
King
name
is running for president. End statement.
I don't know. I can't remember what his name is. Let me just do a quick little double check on Bo, the fifth column. He did a video about it last night. Trump. Chris Christie. Chris Christie is running for president, not to be president, but just simply so he can take votes away from Trump and spite the man and fuck over his campaign.
That is fucking hilarious. I mean, I don't like Chris Christie.
I know, right?
He's a piece of shit. He was the
Sure.
governor of Jersey for a good while, but that's hilarious. That's great.
I aspire to that level of pettiness, just saying.
Yeah. Fucking
Just
right.
the sheer fact that a man who was assumed to be dead and murdered by his wife 4 years ago can now run for president, and Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is running as a Democrat with a Republican running mate, but she doesn't actually have a Republican running mate.
Oh.
It's all a shit.
It's a
It's
shit
all a
show.
Hey, look.
shit.
We're in interesting times right
Subscribe
now.
to my
where the
OnlyFans.
world... We're in interesting times right now where everybody knows that the world is in a terrible upset of power imbalance and societal cohesion, and nobody knows where to go from here, and it's anybody's game. And so that's why it's ripe for the picking for us witches.
Yeah. Which is
We
why
can make it a magical world, bitches.
make that our mission. We need to make this world better. So, do magic, make the world better. And we'll see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.